So here I have another Cuckoo Clock, and this is the first time of all the clocks I've gotten from the Goodwill auction site that it was actually damaged, and technically speaking it wasn't damaged because of the wrapping, because this box could have fallen off the truck and I don't think it would have hurt the clock any. The problem was whoever wrapped it set the weights on top of the dial of the Cuckoo Clock, and they were not wrapped or anything. Then they wrapped the whole clock, so the weights scratched the clock, broke the hands, and popped the roof off part way. So let me show you, but just the same, I'm still happy to get this clock, and I did talk to Goodwill and they made it right, so I'm happy with that too. So let me show you what I got here. So this is the clock I got. Came with the pendulum. It's got the two tones to it. A really nice colored clock. Here you can see the hand was broke off. In fact, it's not even in the packaging that I could find. It does have its chains. It came with 2 weights. Right here is where the, let's get this a little closer, you can see. Right here you can see where the roof is split. And so that needs to be glued back together again. Of course this is popped off, is why it's split. And here you can see where the paint's been kind of scratched off because the weight's coming up this way, hitting in here. Tell you the truth, this is a plastic bird, if you ask me, glued onto the wood. In fact, that's exactly what I'd say, is it's a plastic bird glued on. That's kind of disappointing to see that. Like I say, when they're starting to make these clocks super cheap, I can understand they need to save money, but they have to understand too that they're selling these things for an arm and a leg, brand new, and they should be selling a product that's worth its money. Anyway, right here, it's also split, so the frame started to crack. The upper part's not broke yet. Other than that, you can see there's a bird in here. The bellows all look really nice in here. And it cuckoos. And let's see if the pendulum moves. Yeah, the pendulum even moves. Normally a clock you get offline, especially on Goodwill, they don't work, they need cleaned and everything else. This one here, the works actually looks pretty good. I mean, it's got a little bit of, it feels good too. It has a little bit of tarnishing, I guess we'll call it, and which doesn't bother me one bit. If the clock works, technically speaking, why mess with it? I can see them going cheap on the dial because the numbers on here, in my opinion, is overrated, unless they're going to put the bone hands and numbers on there. Otherwise, they're always peeling off, popping off, or whatever. And they do make replacements. I have replaced them, but it's kind of nice to have these permanently installed and the numbers are right where they're supposed to be instead of gobbled up, garbed up. Anyway, it says made in Germany. Normally when it says made in Germany, I do believe that means this here's a newer clock, in which I'm going to say obviously it is because these plastic birds sitting on here. I'm not going to clean or oil the works as long as it's working, because according to the book, it tells you if you are running your clock and it stops, and not because the weights hit the floor, but it stops, it just slowed down, stopped, it's all gummed up, it's because you haven't oiled your clock every 2 or 3 years without cleaning it. They say that's doable on these clocks, is to keep them lubed up, to keep that oil fresh in there and not drying out and whatnot. And that's a good time to check whether you have a lot of dust in your clock or whatever, so you should maybe clean it. So actually pulling the works out and oiling it on both sides is a good thing without having to worry about cleaning it. If it froze up already, you should realistically take it apart and actually clean it. So all I'm going to do on this one, besides replace the hand, I'm going to repair the roof and see how well this thing runs. Like I say, I'm pretty much thrilled through the death of the clock, and I'll touch up these plastic birds, and see about how well this clock runs. Now this bird on here, it's obvious it's all wood. That makes me happy. At least they did that part. I guess realistic is no biggie, but I bet you they asked a pretty penny for this clock, even though it's a one-day clock. Got the nice gong on there. And this clock also came with the pendulum to match. So anyway, I'm going to get in here, get this touched up, get this roof glued back together again, and color it. So for this clock that came damaged, you can see it's got stuff on here. It looks like something was spilled on here, I'm not sure. Anyway, I plan on taking some Dawn dishwashing soap, wet paper towel together, and just kind of wash that off. But first, there's this crack here. I'm going to try to put some glue in there, squeeze this together, and give that time to dry. And then I'll go ahead and go over the clock with the Dawn dishwash soap and a wet rag. Try to clean it the best I can. And then I'm going to do a little bit of brushing on here to get rid of this white color that was knocked all over these birds and whatnot. I already replaced the hands on here. And the hands, the shaft, I was talking to the guy I ordered most of my parts from, and he says that there were many clock manufacturers, and so they had different size shafts and hands, and these hands happened to fit almost over that shaft. I had to take the razor blade knife on the hour hand and trim ever so slightly to get the hand to go on, and then this one went on just fine. If your hour hand happens to you carve too much, let's say, take some of your super glue and put it on the inside of the hand off this clock, put it on the inside of the hand. Here, let me show you another one. I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to show you. You take your super glue and you get a drop that'll go all the way around on the inside of this hole, and then make sure to turn it in case you got a bit much, because what the idea is you're trying to get that glue to fill in just a little bit, and you need it to be even, so that's why you're turning it until it has time to dry, and then make sure it's dry, because you don't want to glue this onto the shaft. Once it's dry, take it and test fit it, and if it falls all the way through, put another layer of the super glue inside there, and as long as you're not building a big area up, it should be fine. And also, you can test this after it semi-dries. Test it on there, don't force it, and if it feels like it's pretty close to what you want, let it dry overnight, or at least 6 hours, to make sure this thing dries good, and then go ahead and put it over and make sure it fits good. So that's a real nice key for the super glue, we'll say. Otherwise, I don't know what else you could do, because you might have overcarved or whatever. But anyway, let me get this thing glued together. Right here, and I'll put a drop of glue on a toothpick, and then I'll work that in there before I'm going to probably end up putting rubber bands coming across, because it's not that much needed strength wise, and the clamp is a little cumbersome. Now once that dries, and once I've touched the birds up and whatnot, so it all looks better, I plan on waxing this clock, and this will look a lot better. This will shine. Of course, I'm going to clean this stuff off of here, whatever it is, and waxing this, there's a good chance that this is going to kind of disappear. They do have old English, what do they call it, scratch guard or something like that. Here's an old bottle. They have different kinds. I don't know if they even sell this stuff anymore. I've got old bottles. This here's for a darker clock, and they have light color scratch covers, and there's a chance I might put a little bit in there, but otherwise there's a chance I might even try it on the birds. Otherwise I'm going to use a possible stain or a paint to, we'll call it antique it. I guess is what you call it. I'm not doing the whole bird, I'm just doing the highlight spots, and we're going to see how that works out. So here, let's get a close up maybe. You can see it better now that it's drying off. And like I say, this stuff here might go away just waxing it, because I guess this is mainly just scratches that are on here. Originally I was thinking it was, let's call it food or something, but I think it's mainly scratches. And so what I might do is try just a little bit of wax on there, because I notice when it's wet it disappears, and so waxing this might be the thing I need to do. Chestnut. Not an exact match, but I don't think it looks that bad. This here chestnut, very light, but I left the brush dirty with the chocolate sprinkle and got it to work in, and then I blended it in, and I think it blended in pretty good considering. So now he's darker, he's kind of darker. It was a hit and miss the way they sprayed it anyway, and so like I say, no one's gonna know the difference, and the birds look a lot better now. So while that's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and start on this and try the wax out, see how it works out. Got a rag that I've been using for a while. I'll just use the same rag. It's not like rocket science. You just need to have it waxed. Soak in, and then we'll show you what it looks like a little bit later after it's soaked in. I don't know if you can see the nastiness, we'll say. Let's try a little bit of wax on that. Like I said, I think that there is mainly a scratched finish, and this wax kind of should take its place, just like the wet rag, where it didn't look too bad. If you can see that right over, I guess you can't. Right over here, where my finger's rubbing over. So I have it all waxed now, and the wax did help hide those marks on here, but what they actually are is this was sprayed with the finish at one time, and the finish is actually scratched, and it's kind of hard to hide them, but like I say, the wax has done a fabulous job on that. Put the new hands on here, and if it wasn't for the weights beating on this clock, that's the only thing it may have needed is just a wax job and ready to go. Although this here can be oiled, and it is a running clock, and so just oiling the clock is just fine. But still, I say, don't oil just the back side. You need to actually take the works out, oil the front and the back side, because each one of those gears goes all the way through, and only oiling half the clock, the other half, the front of the clock, will be struggling, let's say. This is an unusual clock to get. Normally, when you get them from Goodwill, most people don't want to pay to have them repaired, or don't know where to have them repaired or cleaned and oiled, and so they just get rid of them. So here we go, a fantastic clock. So I hope you enjoyed this clock, getting it back together, cleaning it up and making it look good again. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and don't forget to subscribe because it's free, and we'll see you next time.